In terms of our lead speaker today, we're lucky to have Paul North from the Big Group. I'm going to ask Paul to tell a bit about what he does, particularly with the AI. But as an introduction, they're a multi-service marketing agency, work with some massive firms, Mastercard, Samsung, Polestar, and in particular, from an AI perspective, they provide training. They help with the transition for firms, provide development of tools that help the effectiveness and efficiency for them and their clients. Paul, as I say, AI is his thing, and he writes, speaks, consults to a number of industry bodies on the subject. Where this topic came from, I was very lucky to be invited to a roundtable by Robert Moore of Jersey Finance, and there was a mix of people from professional backgrounds, creative backgrounds, and what became quite clear was that certainly on the professional side, there was a relatively limited understanding, but what came off the back of the roundtable is that actually that needed to change quite significantly. I'm going to ask Paul to jump in a second just to give a bit of background on what he does. In terms of the steps today, there's sort of two sides. One, general AI, and then secondly, a more specific look at professional services. And from a general AI, Paul is going to cover what is it and some of the little sort of differences within AI, the different waves we've had, expected, when they're coming, what they look like, and then some of the general misconceptions, of which there are quite a few. And then we're specifically going to look at professional services and potentially how the shape of firms is going to change over time. Then we're going to look at, I think, hopefully, what the UK government's approach or what they've said they're going to do is, and then also the limitations and the importance of soft skills. Paul, so if you could just briefly give your intro.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I'm the head of AI at Big Group. I won't go into Big Group further than what Andrew said. I've worked in marketing for about 20 years, and artificial intelligence or intelligence in general, neuroscience and so on was like a hobby, just a thing I was interested in and would read about. But in 2022, things started to happen. First, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a Google engineer thought their AI internally was sentient and started to raise alarm bells, and the news picked it up, and the guy had to be put on leave. But that was the point there, that language models had started to get really good to the point that they could convince an engineer that sentience had arrived, and it hadn't, and it won't for I don't know how long, years. But at the same time, DALL-E, the image generator, was launched, where you could just type a sentence and it would create the image in 30 seconds to a minute. And so I started to, I knew what was going on, having read about this for a while and what it meant. And it also wasn't meant to happen then. It was meant to be 5-10 years away that the technology would be this good. So it took a lot of people by surprise. So I started briefing our agency what it meant for content creation, marketing services, the business model, whereby we bill by the hour and we price based on how long things take. And then by the end of the year, I think it was the end of November, ChatGPT launched. And of course, things blew up then. But what that also showed was the technology isn't just here. It hasn't just crossed the threshold. The rate of improvement is now exponential. It's already got this good. And then by February, GPT-4 launched. So it was getting out of hand. And so I, at the end of the year over Christmas, designed the head of AI role and its remit and everything, and pitched the board when I got back, and they agreed and created and agreed that I would be the person to do it. So here I am, and as Andrew mentioned, I'm responsible for internal training, advising the board on how it will affect us, what to do about it. More and more though, now I'm building things. I started making demo products last summer and automating some of our services and adding lots of value add by teaching the AIs how to do our jobs or tasks or elements of it, how to answer questions and make recommendations and so on, and started showing them to clients. And they said, well, can we have one of those for us? And so now I'm building quite a lot, and they're getting pretty big as well, the tools. So somehow I've ended up being some kind of software designer as well, unexpectedly. But so what I'll do a what is AI as some definitions to start with. Ask any questions. Is there if there's a thing that you can put your hand up, do so, and just stop me at any point if you want to ask stuff.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, just absolutely. If you have a question, just ask it. That is the whole purpose of this event. It is, or these series, it's supposed to be like you're sitting around having a coffee and a chat with a friend. So please don't stand on Sam. If you have a question, don't make me ask all of the stupid questions. That'd be really helpful. Thanks.
So at the moment, what people are talking about with AI is a thing called generative AI. And it's a new generation of AI, but it's the stuff we've all been used to for years, with our algorithms in Amazon and social networks and Siri and Alexa and all the rest. Those are all neural networks, and they're all machine learning AI. This new form, though, is generative, and it came through a breakthrough.
Sorry, Paul, what's neural network? I don't know what that means.
A neural network is like our brain, a network of neurons. And so it's an artificial equivalent of that. It's networked computers working together.
Okay.
In 2017, a team at Google came up with an algorithm and a process called the transformer, which was a breakthrough. It made the neural networks learn a lot better, and meant that the more information you give them, the better they become. And so, of course, by 2022, they'd become really good. And now they're getting better and better, faster and faster. So that's what AI generally means. The main model type is called a large language model. So GPT-4 and ChatGPT is a large language model. And yeah, I'll leave it basically at that. One reason for the hype with these things is that most of their abilities are not taught to them. They have emerged simply because of the information that they've absorbed and seen the patterns, and then inferred logic, inferred our own laws of language and thinking. One of my favorite examples is a thing called the theory of mind. Some of you may know what a theory of mind is, but it's basically humans develop it when they're about 4 years old, and that it's the understanding that other people may have a different understanding of events than you do. Not everyone has the same information. So there's a good exercise, and if you know any 2-3-year-olds, try this on them. Just tell them a sequence of events. So let's say Paul goes into a room and puts a ball in a box and walks out of the room. Andrew goes into the room, takes the ball out, and puts a glass in the box and walks out. Now, what does Paul think is in the box? So if you ask that to someone or something with no theory of mind, they will tell you Paul thinks a glass is in the box, because they know that there's a glass in the box. So we all know that that's what should be true. And so a toddler will think that. After about the age of 4, they realize Paul can't know that. He didn't see what Andrew did. So Paul will still think a ball is in that box. And that's how with the language models before 2023, they didn't have theory of mind. They certainly weren't taught it. But now if you ask GPT-4 any of those questions, and much more complicated ones, they understand. And that was an emergent property And there are many others you can Google. So a lot of the things that the tools, the language models are able to do have emerged just from the weight of information that they've been given to read. So where is this going? At the moment, we have the models, and I guess many of you may have used them. You can ask them to write stuff, to develop pictures, to do a few processes, etc. They do what you're told, what they're told. They make a little bit of a few mistakes, and there's an error rate, which is getting smaller and smaller each week, but it's still there. But that's it. They wait for instruction, and that's still incredibly useful. The tools I'm making is just a massive list of instructions and tree diagrams of logic flow. If the user says this, do that. So a bit like computer programs, really, but written in natural language and tailored towards doing various knowledge work. What's coming quite soon, and we'll see a few of these by the end of the year, are things called agents. And they don't need to be told what to do so much. They just need to be given a goal, and they will work out what they need to do to achieve that goal. So the consumer-based what things would be like, book me a nice holiday, and it will know, okay, I need to go to this website. I need to understand what Paul, where he would like to go and how he would like to travel and all that. You wouldn't need to break it all down and instruct each bit. It would just do it. And
sorry, when are you expecting agents to come in?
This year. So if you use Copilot on Windows, some agentic features are coming this year. Once GPT-5 launches, I think a lot of that is going to be agent capabilities. So you'll see it this year from various companies, and they'll be okay. They'll be, they'll make a few mistakes. They'll be a bit annoying, but most of the AI companies are openly saying they are building agents where you give it a goal and it'll go and do the work.
And sorry, just you may have already said this, but what's the form of AI that we have now? What's that called?
Generative AI.
Generative.
Yeah. Well, and all the other forms are there as well, but the sort of all the hype and interest is around this form, which is called generative AI. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
And so agents are the kind of little bit scary ones because they do jobs. You give them goals, they go and do it. But then on the horizon, and the deliberate goal of most of the big AI companies is to reach a point known as artificial general intelligence, whereby the AI can do everything a human can do, and a top 99th percentile human. And
is this where we start to get Cyberdyne from Terminator popping up? Yeah.
That's where. So everyone's guessing at what point that will arrive. Some say 5 years, some say 15, but definitely within our lifetimes. And that's where governments have to be ready for all kinds of things, and a hell of a lot of work on safety has to be done, and all the rest.
And sorry, and one of the things that when we spoke that sort of I thought was really interesting is, and I know you're going to talk about this later, there's been historically there's been changes in the way the workforces have been applied or distributed. But the interesting thing, or possibly the worrisome thing, is the speed at which the changes are capable of happening. It's only going to get faster.
Yeah. So at the moment, you see call center work is well underway of being passed over to AI. In marketing world, a lot of copy, translation, that's being done at the moment. This week and last week in the news, musicians are starting to realize with some of the tools, then you can now generate a pop song in 30 seconds. And with lyrics, singing, everything. So yeah, all of that is happening. So with jobs are basically a collection of tasks, different tasks that all blend together to form a job. But then all of our jobs shift, like the type of tasks we do are different today than they were 2 years ago, 5 years ago, even though the job is still called that job. So AI can and is disrupting jobs a lot by doing a load of tasks, but for a while we're shifting to different tasks, and it's great. AI can take the boring stuff and we'll do the more interesting, fun stuff, or we'll do the things we always want to do but just don't have time, and so on. But it's kind of inevitable. The general consensus is that most knowledge jobs will be better done by artificial intelligence before long. There's argument over exactly when and how long, and there's plenty of ways that it's bottlenecked. But zoom out 500 years, we all worked in fields back in the 17th century. Agriculture was the main thing everyone did. We then, of course, shifted with the Industrial Revolution into factories and laboring. That was the main job. Agriculture's still there. There is still today, obviously, people working in fields. But after the Industrial Revolution, by the mid-20th century, we started to shift to offices. And today, it's the dominant form of work is an office-based thing. But of course, that was never going to last. None of the others have, and this won't. So AI is simply the beginning of the shift away from offices. There will be fewer and fewer people from this point working in offices. What the dominant form of work will be after this is, no one knows yet. It's a big question mark. There's a few clues, but and that's what we're seeing going on. It's now logical and inevitable that jobs are going to be done by AIs because they're incredibly more cost-effective, efficient, and so on. And they certainly will be in a year and 2 and 3 years' time.
Sorry, Paul, just to go back, what are those sort of indicative new roles that will emerge off the back of this?
So yeah, I get asked this question a lot and talk about it a lot. Andrew mentioned the soft skills. So I have a friend who's...
Sorry, can we just put a pin in that for a second? Because I think there's actually quite a specific professional services question which we can move on to. And then one final thing on the more general is, what are the misconceptions that most people that don't have your level of knowledge, what are those misconceptions? Then I'll make sure we come back to that question.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to talk about misconceptions because most people's interaction with AI is ChatGPT or a chatbot like it, and it's kind of cool. You get it to say stuff, and it writes an average poem and can tell you a joke and all the rest. And for a lot of people, that's the idea tends to stop there, that it's a thing that can write or it can generate a picture and so on. That's fine, it can do that, but the thing that's really going on, the brain behind it, is a logic and reasoning machine. So it is able to solve problems. The work that I give it, a lot of it is interpretive. I ask it to follow instructions, but also to interpret how to answer things and to arrive at the right answer, or to use theories to tackle a problem and so on. So the kind of reason for the hype and excitement is these things are logic engines, and their ability to solve difficult cerebral challenges is currently good. They pass all the any GPT-4 and the other leading models ace all of the university exams and so on, and they're getting better and better. They're very intelligent things. So it's not simply about that. Also, they're learning. You can teach them new skills. Anything you can teach an employee in an office, you can teach the AIs now, and that's been the case for about a year. So that's what I think people. I don't think everyone realizes that these are now as good as the top 10% of people in your company in raw in intelligence. They just haven't had the experience yet, or haven't been taught all the jobs, or they make various mistakes in certain ways. But yeah, that's what I did. Thanks, Andrew. I did want to.
But you would say that's the main misconception. Has anyone else got something misconception that they're willing to share? So it's a safe space. No? Okay. So, Paul, it's probably worth coming back.
I couldn't get my finger to the unmute quick enough. Sorry, Andy. and they proves your point that probably I'm in the bottom 90%. But there's this idea, and I don't know if it's like science fiction-y, but that it'll take over. That it'll start thinking for itself, and in a Richard Dawkins chaos theory, start actually looking at its own survival. I don't know if that's complete.
That's
utter nonsense.
I mean, if you look into that at the moment, you'll only see opinion and debate. No one knows. There are some very compelling arguments about that, and so that's what is known as AGI, artificial general intelligence, and some of the really good arguments that for that point of view, i.e., yes, they will try to survive and try to get rid of us. They're hard to argue against some of those points, but no one knows. And also, yeah, we've got 10 years roughly until that happens, until the technology's there. And it also needs another breakthrough. The technology at the moment is transformer based. So the T in GPT stands for transformer, generative pre-trained transformer, and those are mimics. That's a neural network that's read everything ever, the whole internet, and has seen, therefore, this God's eye view of all of human language, and has seen the patterns. So it is able to sort of mimic our thoughts, our methods of thinking. It's inferred what logic is because of that. And it therefore is very convincing at appearing to be able to think for itself, but it's not. It's just doing an impression of something that's thinking for itself. But then I guess there are philosophical debates about, what does that matter? What's the difference? If it appears to be, or if it is, the end result might still be the same. So then,
back to our children. Are they born with certain things, or are they taught it, and are they just mimicking what they're seeing? But this could be the same then.
Exactly. So, yeah, a lot of the way human brains work are uncannily similar to the way the language models are working, and in the way they start to arrive at certain things. So there was a thing where around December, GPT-4 started getting lazy, and lots of people were pointing it out and showing examples, and OpenAI couldn't explain. They said, we haven't done anything. And by lazy, I mean it would tell the user, go and look it up. Instead of giving the answer or doing the task, it would ask the user to just, you do it. And
taking a management role, basically.
Yeah. And one theory that was mooted, and then I wouldn't say proved, but definitely made convincing with a whole lot of tests and evidence, was that because the AI's read everything, it notices conversations around November, December, tend to, you see people putting off tasks and not do, because Christmas is coming up and the holidays. So it's seen billions and billions of examples of contextual discussions in December putting things off. And so they started testing by tricking the AI into thinking it was a different time of year and asking it to do the same thing, and it would behave normally. And so this is what I mean, that they're doing a mimic. It's all mimicry of humans, but we're finding out things about ourselves that we'd not really examined or noticed. And that was
so the ultimate conclusion then is that it will learn that we all kill each other, therefore it will just kill us.
Yeah, and it learns. A hell of a lot of work is done before they're released to remove all the nastiness in humanity, not all the bias, but as much bias as possible, all the bigotry, all the swearing, all the racism, all the bad parts of us that are very present and visible when you look at the whole. A lot of work is done to tell the AI, do not talk about those things, do not say that, and so on. But yeah, the open source models can't afford to do that, so they're a mirror of us.
So I'm conscious that we're getting very close in. There's a couple of things that I wanted to get your input on, Paul. So professional services, wide range. What's the impact on this? And I know historically a typical professional firm is very, pyramid based. How is that going to change with AI? And what will that change imply for the different sort of sectors or levels within those firms?
Well, I don't know enough about the professional services sector, but I'll tell you generally, soft skills. I have some good chats with a friend who's an IP lawyer, and he talks about the amount of his job that is interpreting the people he's working with. What level of risk do they like to accept? What's their past history? The working with humans, everything that's negotiation, with that's empathy, all the human understanding, any aspects of your job that rely on that, it are probably safe for a very long time, if not forever.
So this is the limitations we're current on now. They at the moment they don't have, and it's not envisaged that anytime soon that they'll have the power to cover empathy and the softer skills.
They'll never have the human experience, and so yes, that's it, and that's why novelists, artists are also fine from ultimately. Maybe they won't be hired to produce as much work, but the human experience can't be mimicked. It can be mimicked, but it can't be lived and therefore true. But again, that sounds all science fiction and way in the future, doesn't it? But the other stuff, at least in the short to medium term, if you know why your job is done, what is the actual goal you're working towards, that is really important. That means regardless, you're not worried about the individual tasks or who does them and how they're done. You're worried about getting to the end point, a happy customer, let's just say, to keep it very, very broad. If you're focused on that, then again, you'll adapt very well. You'll be very happy to have AIs do all the tasks because you will be moving towards the happy customer goal. In marketing, that's increase our clients' market share or shift the view of this brand from here to there and so on. It doesn't matter what all the tasks are to do it. You'll make sure everything necessary to be done will be done, and hopefully then you'll be compensated according to the outcome and the quality of the outcome you produce, rather than how many hours it took you to do it or how much work was done and so on. So I think a lot of knowledge work, services, professional services are shifting towards, and are going to need to shift towards that, because we're getting to the point soon where everyone knows roughly what can be done by a machine and an AI and what can't, and how fast they are and how much they cost compared to the human. So we'll have to shift things towards business models that are about outcome.
Sorry, Andrew, you had a question earlier that I've that we were going to come back to. Have we already covered the response to that?
I think so. There was being discussion about also universal basic income as a result of AI replacing jobs.
Yeah, the government's, that's on the table. I know. The also things like 4-day weeks to protect jobs, at least for a while. If the working week went down to 4, so more jobs 20% more jobs would be created, then these things are being discussed. I don't know. It's the speed of change which is the difficulty. The technology is moving at a pace that no one can handle. The thing that is slowing it down is just business process. You can't change business process very fast. We have
Sorry, Paul. You just, did I hear that right? You said reverting to a 4-day week, and then 20% more job creation. How does that work?
Well, sorry, Paul, to jump in, I think it comes from when we spoke, the government has said that they're going to protect jobs, yet increase productivity, which seems pretty tough to do both. Is that sort of the starting point for reducing?
The 20% just means we work a 5-day week at the moment, and so if we all work a 4-day week, companies will have to hire people to work for the 5th, as in, so it will create 20% more hires needed in order to cover the full week.
But we're not needed anymore.
Basically.
Well,
no, because if data and logic can replace human activity, because AI does it quicker, more efficiently, and in a non-office environment. So all those back office functions can be carried out through AI via the cloud or whatever. So I'm commercial property. So it's an eye-opener for me, because post-COVID has been return to work, and whether people return to work or work from home. Well, this is taking it one stage further by replacing almost the back office function of people by AI, because it does it efficiently as a computer.
Yeah, that's what appears to be underway. The speed of change is what no one knows, how quick the transition will happen, but also it won't wipe out all the jobs. It's just like where a sector has 100 people, it will still need about 20 of them plus the AIs, and the total productivity will be greater than it was when there was 100 people.
So the worrying thing is the words that you use wipe out. I mean, you said earlier, don't worry, this is only going to, this is 10 years down the road. Flipping heck. It's scary.
Yeah.
I think, sorry, just to go back to a point in terms of wiping out jobs, I suppose it's a case of jobs will change because of it. So whereas you would have had to spend a huge amount of time researching information, those people that would ordinarily have researched the information will need to be trained so that they're actually editing the information rather than doing the hard yards research. Am I right, Paul? That's probably sort of a subtle difference. There's sort of a different job role, really.
In auditing the work that we do and the impact on AI that could happen, we found some jobs, let's say productivity goes up and up and up for a few years in all these jobs. With some jobs, the market can't absorb the extra productivity, i.e., there is not room for more adverts, much more adverts. That I'm sure the industry will find more, but you can't. No one benefits for you producing 1,000 web pages instead of 100. Like, where are they all going to go? Who's going to see them, etc. So volume only expands so far, and then the extra productivity isn't needed. So you'd expect workforce to shrink there. But in a lot of other areas, the time would get reinvested into quality. So with strategy, for example, you reinvest. It gets much faster to get to a strategy, but you reinvest that time to increase your confidence. You do more research, you find more data points, and the confidence that your strategy will work increases. And so that job is automated a lot, but without any reduction in human workforce. HR is similar. HR is being automated a lot, but the goal of HR arguably is improving employee wellness or well-being or whatever. And that's a never-ending job. You can automate 100% of that, and the HR people will still be busy finding new ways to, make people happier and work better and so on. So this is what I mean by, and I apologize for my overexcited language like wipeout, but tasks are going. Some jobs will, some jobs where in greater percentages than others, but new jobs or new definitions of jobs are dropping in. Yeah. It's about the speed of the transition and also the makeup of the economy and what jobs are done by humans and what by robots and AI. That is all underway of being reassessed. So yeah, a lot of new jobs are going to emerge, and it's going to be sort of a government corporate responsibility to make sure that the pace of change happens in a way that doesn't impact humans too much.
Yeah, guys, I'm conscious that we have massively overrun, which I don't normally do, but it just feels like a topic that you can't really cover essentially in half an hour. Paul, can we put sort of for everyone that's jumped on today, can we put like a sort of a listicle, I think it's called, a list of sort of key points that we covered today? I'll have your contact details on there. Because one of the things that I've been doing a bit of reading on this, and obviously with the change that's coming through and the change in the workforce required to do certain jobs, particularly professional services, sort of an understanding or a literacy as AI is key, which obviously plays very well into your knowledge base. But and the overall sort of finishing point on this is either you embrace it or you'll become obsolete. Would you? I mean, I'm assuming you agree with that, right? That's because that's why you switched your area of expertise.
Yeah, I one of the reasons I switched, I'll admit, it was that I thought this is going to totally change. This is going to wreck my profession in a way that I don't like. I don't want to be asked to just produce more and more and more and more and more with the costs going down and down and down. But I really like the area. I've been reading about it for years, and so I also I saw this as the time to get involved. Sorry, what was the question again? Just before it was,
it was sort of just the fact that we need to really get on board with it, otherwise.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say everyone's got to weigh up the pros and cons. You can just hold out and not do anything with AI. I would say that's a big risk. Some people it might work for them. In the same way, you have sort of non-digital crafts people that make beautiful handcrafted stuff with no involvement with modern technology, and they make a good living. They're a small number of people, but it's a viable way. The phrase that's always used is, you won't lose your job to AI, you'll lose your job to someone using AI better than you. That's generally a good way to look at it. Also, to focus on the things that can't be done by a machine, such as the soft skills, empathy, and so on. And also to focus on the output of your job, the quality, and rather than the quantity, how many items of your to-do list you've ticked off, etc. And focus on delivering quality outcomes for your company and clients, and price your value your services accordingly to those outcomes. Don't look at volume and effort as being particularly valuable things to market yourself as anymore.
Brilliant.
I think in professional services, that's what we're thinking is it's going to take away the base level compliance processing, but on the basis that robots don't have empathy. That's where you need to be focusing on your efforts, in that human interactions are not necessarily rational. And there's always going to be a place for irrational thought in people's planning. Objectives are not always rational objectives. So therefore are always going to come slightly unstuck with AI and its rationality. So that's what I think we as professional services should be focusing on.
And David, have you at Menzies been doing quite a bit looking into that? I mean, is it an area of interest for you? I suppose that's
it's a particular. I mean, I studied computer science at university 40 years ago. So it is of interest for me, and I have a strong interest in science fiction. It's the sort of Blade Runner concept of trying to be able to tell the difference between a robot and a human because of empathy. Yeah. And we are using it to some extent. And we are investigating enhancing that further. But I suspect in accountancy particularly, there will be a very resistant tail. People have done the same thing for 30 years, 40 years, and it's going to take a while for people to get their heads around the change. And the people will be using it without the bosses, as it were, knowing that it's going on.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be, I mean, everyone's worried about jobs, and we have kind of centered on that. The net benefit of this technology, I believe, and would appear to be extremely high, very, very good. The things that are now becoming possible and hit the news, or at least in AI industry news, more or less every week, are gigantic breakthroughs coming through in science, technology, even the application of AI across humanity tends to bring the lower levels up to the middle immediately. So just take medical advice. Anyone in the remotest part of the world with no medical training, but with access to a language model, can get to a mid-level of medical understanding on diagnosis and treatment and everything immediately, just by asking questions or showing video. This is, or a picture. This is what I'm seeing on the patient. What do I do? So there's a hell of a lot of benefit that we'll all get. We'll all see. So yeah, just for balance, I'd say that.
Hey guys, right. So I don't think I've ever overrun as much as this, but if anyone has a question, please shout now. Otherwise, we are going to cut it off, because these sessions are supposed to only be half an hour, and that's kind of their upside, really. No questions? Good. Right. Okay. Well, listen, Paul, thank you so much for that. It's such an amazing topic. There's loads, to be fair, we probably haven't covered. We definitely haven't covered. I'm still quite worried about the prospect of Cyberdyne 2.0. Sounds like it's going to happen. So that's fun. But if you have any questions, I'm going to send an email out to everyone that's been on with Paul's details. Please reach out. And if there's anyone on the call that you've seen that you think actually that would be a good connection for me too, please let me know, and I will be happy to connect you. So yeah, anyway, thank you for all jumping on. And Paul, thank you for leading the conversation.
Thanks for
having me. I'll see you all in a month's time.
Thank you.